The air inside Sunrise Diner 17 was thick with burnt coffee and weary motion, the kind that settles when the morning rush never really ends. Plates clattered, silverware clinked, and the faded vinyl booth squeaked under the weight of tired conversations. But none of it mattered not to Marcus Bell, not this morning. He sat in a corner booth by the window, disguised beneath a flannel jacket and a trucker cap pulled low. It was supposed to be a quiet visit, a silent check-in on one of the franchise's oldest locations. No fanfare, no entourage, just Marcus playing the part of Henry Tate, a drifter grabbing breakfast. But what he heard next shattered that pretense. If I'm working 60 hours a week, why does my paycheck say I owe them $3? The sentence wasn't shouted. It wasn't bitter. It was muttered softly by a waitress with her back turned, almost as if she was joking to herself while slicing toast behind the counter. Yet to Marcus, the words landed with the weight of a confession. His fork paused midair. The toast felt like paper in his mouth. He looked up slowly, studying the girl, early 20s, maybe younger, ponytail barely held together, diner apron 2 sizes too big, sneakers worn down to the fabric. Her name tag read Lena, though the plastic was cracked and scratched like it had seen more double shifts than she had birthdays. She didn't even seem to realize what she had just said. But Marcus did. And something in his gut told him this wasn't just one bad payroll glitch. It was a red flag dressed in indifference. He leaned back in his booth, heart sinking. For years, he'd stood before investors proudly touting his company's motto, real food, real people, dignity in every shift. He built True Heart Eats on that promise. Now, here he was, watching a young woman too exhausted to realize her dignity had been stolen in broad daylight. She passed by his table again, refill pot in hand. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, miss," he said quietly. She paused, tired eyes flicking to his without much expectation. "Did you mean what you said about owing money on your paycheck?" For a moment, her face tightened. Then she gave a short, awkward laugh. "It's just a joke, I guess," she said. "My last check, after taxes, insurance, and all those lovely miscellaneous corrections, and it came out negative. I had to borrow gas money from my mom, again." Marcus kept his expression neutral, but inside, he was reeling. Miscellaneous corrections? That wasn't company policy, that wasn't even close. "Have you talked to the manager?" he asked. Her eyes darted toward the hallway near the back office. Then came another dry chuckle. "He says it's the system, or accounting, or Mercury's in retrograde. Doesn't matter. I stopped asking." She shrugged. It wasn't anger. It was resignation. The kind that broke your heart more than rage ever could. Then she moved on without a word. Marcus didn't eat the rest of his toast. He slid a business card from his wallet, one printed under a false consulting firm tied to a private inbox. On the back, he scribbled, "Keep tracking. Don't share yet. Someone sees you." He folded it neatly, tucked it under the untouched toast, and stood. The bell above the door chimed lazily as he exited. Outside, Columbus was still gray, the early morning sky refusing to commit to daylight, but Marcus saw clearly now. This wasn't just a single bad paycheck. It was something rotting beneath the surface of his company. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat in the dark of a company-owned condo, flannel jacket tossed over a chair, replaying the day in his head. Lena's voice echoed, "My paycheck says I owe them $3. Her notebook, the way she had documented everything, hours worked, shifts covered, tips earned, all handwritten in a battered little ledger. That wasn't paranoia. That was evidence. By 5 a.m., he was back in his truck, parked 3 blocks from Sunrise Diner 17, sipping gas station coffee and waiting for the lights inside to flicker on. At 5:26, Lena arrived. He watched her dismount a rusted bicycle with a torn seat, helmet in hand, and disappear into the back entrance. He picked up his phone. "Deborah," he said, voice low, "it's happening again." Her sigh on the other end was immediate. "What did you see?" "Not just favoritism, theft. She's got a notebook, detailed, tips, hours, everything. They're rerouting through the POS. She's working 4 times harder than the 2 boys running the floor." "Manager?" "Travis Cole, promoted by Jeff Melton, one of the old investors." "That tracks," Deborah muttered. "Well, it's deeper than I thought," Marcus said. "Some of these kids don't even have login rights. Tips are rerouted, hours clipped, deductions marked as miscellaneous corrections. It's systemic." "You're planning to blow it up?" "I'm planning to fix what should never have been broken." "Then don't go in blind," she warned. "Let me run a quiet trace on their POS. I'll loop in Mara from internal security. If there's unauthorized rerouting, she'll find it." "And, Deb," he added, "I want the last 3 months of payroll. Quietly." "Done," she said. The next morning, Marcus returned to the diner as Henry Tate. Same jacket, same worn boots. He sat at the same booth. Lena spotted him and offered a faint smile. This time, he ordered oatmeal. "That kid yesterday," he asked casually, "Ryan?" She gave a soft chuckle. "Technically a server, but he doesn't serve tables, just works the register." "How does that work?" Her hand paused on the coffee pot. "Only a few of us have POS access. It's not seniority. It's whoever Travis likes. Ryan always gets lead register. Always." "And you?" "Supplemental. I serve food, bus tables, roll silverware, but I can't touch the register. Not allowed." "Why not?" She looked around, then lowered her voice. "Because I'm not related to anyone." That stopped him cold. "Travis is the manager. Ryan's his nephew. Jason, the other one always by the POS, is Ryan's best friend. They work the same shifts. Split tips digitally. I've had shifts with over $400 in sales. Saw maybe $15 in tips." "You ever complain?" "Once. Got dropped from the schedule the next week. No reason, just not needed. Now I just write it down." "Still have that notebook?" "Always." "Don't lose it," Marcus said, voice steady. "It's going to matter." She studied him, her expression shifting. "Are you someone?" He smiled, but didn't answer. "Let's just say I've seen a lot of diners." Before she could press further, Ryan sauntered behind the counter, barking orders like he owned the place. "Lena, 2 refills at booth 5. She moved instantly. Marcus watched it all, the silent hierarchy, the obedience coded into every gesture. He paid in cash, tipped generously, and walked out. But this time he texted Deborah. "Loop and Mara. Begin audit on Sunrise 17. Focus on manual overrides. Track Ryan Cole." That afternoon, Marcus sat in the Columbus regional office for the first time in months. He logged into the executive terminal with a master key ID, bypassing every firewall. Deborah had already sent him a zip file. Lena proof logs.zip. He opened it. The data was damning. Tip reroutes, unauthorized overrides, phantom approvals, $9,137.22 stolen over 90 days, and it all pointed to Ryan, Jason, and a ghost admin account called Henderson. The kicker? That admin access was level 5, the kind only store managers or corporate had. Travis, or someone above him. His phone buzzed. "Mara," he said, answering. "We've confirmed it," she said. "It's a scheme. Built into the register, the data doesn't lie." "Hold off on confrontation," he said. "Let them rot a little longer." "And Lena?" "Protect her," Marcus said quietly. "If they even change her shift schedule, I want to know first." "Understood." Later that week, Marcus returned again, but not as Henry. No flannel, no cap, just a tailored charcoal suit and the weight of reckoning in his steps. He walked through the door, shoulders square, clipboard in hand. Lena saw him and froze. So did Ryan. Jason blinked. Travis appeared from the back, laughing with a delivery guy until he saw Marcus. The laughter died. The diner fell silent. Marcus walked to the center of the room and spoke. "Good afternoon," he said. "I won't take much of your time, but I will take back my restaurant." No one moved. Lena's eyes widened. Ryan shrank. Travis went pale. And in that moment, Marcus Bell did what he should have done long ago. He began to burn it all down. The silence that followed Marcus Bell's declaration was not the usual awkward pause of confused staff or startled customers. It was something deeper, something that moved through the air like a sudden shift in gravity. The hum of the kitchen quieted, the clink of cutlery froze midair, and even the neon buzz of the diner's sign outside seemed to dim. Lena stood near the soda station, coffee pot still in hand, her eyes locked on Marcus with a look that hovered somewhere between disbelief and recognition. This man, who'd asked about her paycheck 2 mornings ago while dressed like a weary traveler, now stood straight-backed in a custom suit, clipboard in one hand, authority in the other. Travis Cole, the manager whose smirk had ruled the floor for far too long, was pale now, his lips parted but speechless, because deep down he understood what was coming. Marcus stepped closer to the counter, laid the clipboard down with calm precision, and pulled a single sheet from its clamp. The paper bore no theatrics, just names, transaction data, and a line in Marcus's own handwriting that read, "This is where it ends." He lit it toward Travis without breaking eye contact. "You should read that before corporate security arrives," Marcus said quietly. Jason twitched toward the back exit, but before he could take a step, a woman in a dark blazer with no name tag and a tablet under her arm stood up from the corner booth. Mara. She had been there the whole time, watching, logging, waiting. "System scan initialized," she said coolly, tapping the screen. "Do not attempt to access the terminal until we're finished." Ryan, now visibly sweating, stammered something unintelligible, but Marcus cut him off with a glance. "You thought no one noticed," he said, "that you could quietly skim a few dollars from people too tired to complain. But you forgot the simplest truth in this business. Someone always sees." He turned toward Lena, who hadn't moved. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "I kept everything. Every tip, every shift. Every time they said the system was down, it's all in my notebook." Marcus nodded once. "And it matches our audit exactly," Mara confirmed. 76 shifts, over $9,000 misappropriated, all signed off by Travis and Ryan. Travis finally found his voice. "Sir, I swear I didn't authorize—" "Save it," Marcus interrupted. "This isn't a negotiation, it's a reckoning." Jason tried again to retreat, But another agent, this one in plain clothes and quietly stationed near the kitchen, stepped into his path. "We'll be needing all three of you," he said flatly. As they were escorted out, not one staff member spoke, not in defense, not in protest. They simply watched, some with shock, others with the dull resignation of people who had known something was wrong but had never expected it to be righted. Marcus turned to face the room. "Some of you may have seen what was happening. Maybe you were afraid. Maybe you thought keeping your head down was the only way to stay safe. I understand that. But starting today, this place changes." He lifted the clipboard again and flipped it over to reveal a printed memo. "A new policy goes into effect immediately. Transparent tip tracking, real-time logs, shift payout records posted publicly in the break room, and the elimination of miscellaneous deductions. Every single dollar accounted for, every shift honored." The weight in the room began to shift. A few heads lifted. A cook peeked from the kitchen and nodded once. The hostess trainee looked at Lena like she was something holy. Lena herself stood still, notebook clutched to her chest like armor. Then Marcus said the words that would rewrite her future. "Lena," he began, "from this moment forward, you are no longer just a server. You are our new Regional Fairness Advisor for the Midwest Division. Full-time salary, full benefits, and more importantly, a seat at the table where decisions are made." She blinked. "I'm not qualified." "You are," Marcus replied, his voice gentle but firm, "because you never stopped telling the truth, even when no one listened." Her hands shook as she accepted the offer letter he handed her, the gold-embossed logo of True Heart Eats gleaming faintly under the fluorescent lights. Marcus turned once more to the rest of the staff. "We serve real food. We serve real people. And starting now, we serve real justice." 2 days later, Lena stood in the lobby of True Heart Eats headquarters in downtown Chicago, the letter tucked inside her bag like a passport to a different life. The glass walls glittered in the morning light, reflecting a skyline she'd only ever seen from bus windows. Her shoes were borrowed from her cousin, her blazer still had a price tag tucked inside the sleeve, and her curls had been tamed into something semi-professional with 3 pins and a prayer. The receptionist, a woman in red-framed glasses and a voice like chamomile tea, smiled warmly and said, "Floor 17, they're expecting you." The elevator dinged open, and when the doors parted, it wasn't a stranger who greeted her, it was Marcus. "Good morning, Lena," he said, smiling. "I figured I'd show you around myself." "You don't have to," she said quickly, nerves clashing with politeness. He raised a hand. "I do, because if I've learned anything this week, it's that the people who've been ignored the longest often have the most important things to teach." He led her through a maze of glass-walled offices and soft carpets, past rows of focused employees tapping away on tablets. It all felt surreal, clean, efficient, almost too quiet. Nothing like the sizzling chaos of a diner. They stopped at a small conference room where 2 women waited. One was Mara, whose expression was still unreadable but somehow softer now. The other introduced herself as Deborah Ruiz, ethics advisor and Marcus's right hand. "It's an honor to meet you in person," Deborah said, standing. "What you did took courage." "I didn't do anything special," Lena murmured. "I just wrote it down. I didn't want to forget." "That's exactly why you're here," Mara said, sliding a folder across the table. "This is your first assignment." Lena blinked. "Already?" Marcus nodded. "We're auditing 5 more locations. High turnover, payroll, inconsistencies, tip complaints. Sound familiar?" Lena opened the folder. St. Louis, Grand Rapids, Indianapolis, Akron, Dayton. You want me to investigate? Observe. Listen. Talk to staff. Eat the food. Watch the floor. Most of us listen with spreadsheets. You listen with instinct. That's rarer than you think. She looked down at the folder again. Her chest was tight with something she couldn't name, fear, maybe, or responsibility. But beneath it all, something else stirred. Belief. She didn't feel qualified, but for the first time, she felt trusted. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you're not from corporate," Marcus said. "You're not just another suit, and that makes you the most trustworthy person we've got." She looked up. He was serious. She swallowed, then stood and reached for the folder. "Okay." "Welcome to the fight," Marcus said. "Thank you for seeing me," Lena replied. "No," he said with a smile. "Thank you for refusing to disappear." By the end of that week, Lena was already on the road. A blur of bus rides, diner booths, and long hours listening. She sat beside fry cooks and closers. She listened to mothers pulling double shifts and kids saving for community college. In Grand Rapids, a dishwasher named Kayla handed her a crumpled piece of paper tracking missing overtime. In Akron, a line cook named Miguel showed her unprocessed tips hidden behind a false drawer. In Dayton, a server cried when she admitted that every time she spoke up, her hours were cut. Lena didn't argue. She didn't promise reform. She just wrote it all down. The notebook that had once been hers alone was now filling with their voices. And with each line, she remembered Marcus's words. "The people who've been ignored the longest often have the most to teach." Back in Chicago, Lena handed her findings to Mara. The investigator reviewed them in silence, then looked up. "You just helped build the strongest ethics case this company has ever seen," she said. "These aren't complaints. They're patterns. And now we can prove it." The next morning, Marcus called Lena into his office. He stood at the window, looking out over the city like he was trying to measure its pulse. "You know," he said, without turning, "we built this company on 3 words. Real food, real people." "I've seen the posters," Lena said gently. "Yeah," Marcus replied, "but somewhere along the way, we stopped meaning it." He turned toward her. "You reminded us why we started. You reminded me." She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. "I've decided something," he continued. "Something big." He let the silence stretch. "We're going public with it. Not just the reforms. The story. Sunrise 17, the stolen tips, the notebook. You." She froze. "With your permission, of course," he added. "Your name, your face, no actors, no PR spin, just truth." Her heart raced. What if it backfires? "Then it backfires," Marcus said calmly. "But I don't think it will, because you didn't write complaints. You wrote hope, and that's what people need right now." She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers brushed the edge of her notebook, its pages smudged, its corners curled. Then she nodded once. "Okay," Marcus smiled. "Let's tell the country what justice looks like in an apron." The video dropped on a Tuesday. No build-up, no paid promo, just one simple post across all True Heart Eats social media channels with the caption, "Real food, real people, real justice." It opened not with a corporate logo or slick animation, but with a quiet shot of Lena pouring coffee. No music, just the natural clink of ceramic against tabletop. the low murmur of a diner waking up. Then her voice. "I never thought anyone would read what I wrote," she said. "I just knew I had to write it down, because silence makes you disappear. And I didn't want to disappear." The scene shifted to glimpses of other diner servers laughing, line cooks clapping flour off their hands, staff meetings in break rooms, tip logs displayed behind terminals. A slow, steady heartbeat of change. The video closed with Lena standing beside Marcus outside Sunrise number 17, the sign behind them flickering faintly. The final line appeared below them in white. Real food, real people, real justice. Within hours, the video had racked up tens of thousands of views. By day's end, it was trending. Not because it was flashy, but because it was real. Workers from every corner of the country began tagging their own shifts. "This is my diner. This is my manager. This is my notebook." Applications surged. Emails poured in. Ethics reports multiplied. But Lena, she didn't stay to read the comments. She went back on the road. That week she landed in Denver, where snow dusted the rooftops like powdered sugar, and the wind cut sideways down alleyways. Her breath fogged as she stepped into Sunrise number 34, nestled between a laundromat and a payday loan storefront on the edge of a freight truck corridor. From the outside, it looked like any other location neon sign humming, flyers on the window, peeling "Home of the Best Biscuits" sticker half torn. But inside, Lena felt it. Not tension, not hostility, something more dangerous. Stillness. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, but practiced fear. The manager was a woman this time. Gina Mahoney. Crisp, white button-up, sleek ponytail, a smile that hit the teeth but never the eyes. "We run a tight ship here," she said, extending a hand that was colder than the weather outside. "I've been told this is a random quality review?" "Not random," Lena answered with a smile. "Routine. Just observing the new systems, talking to staff, seeing how implementation's going." "Of course," Gina nodded. "We've been fully compliant since day one." Lena had heard that before. She ordered coffee and grits and chose a seat near the back from where she could see the whole floor. It didn't take long. The signs were subtle. The older server with the limp who ran the most tables but never once touched the POS. The younger guy with the slick hair who hovered near the register like a shadow. A dishwasher who flinched every time Gina walked by. But it was the girl near the soda machine who caught Lena's attention. Maybe 19. Hair tied with a shoelace, apron covered in mismatched patches. She moved like a whisper, fast and efficient but always ducking away from attention. Her name tag read Loose. Lena waited until the lunch rush began to slow, then caught her near the storage station. "Hi," she said gently. "Can I ask you something?" Luce turned, startled, eyes wide under thick lashes. "Sure. Do you like working here?" The girl hesitated. "It's better than the last place. At least here I don't get yelled at." She glanced around, then leaned in. "But I'm not sure the system works. Like the new tip tracking thing?" Lena nodded. "Some nights it says I earned $20, but I get 5. Other nights it just says 0. I keep track, though. Used to work nights at a motel. Learned not to trust." "Do you track it?" Lena asked. Luce nodded and reached into her apron, pulling out a small spiral notebook, half crumpled but packed with dense lines of writing. Lena flipped through it gently. The handwriting was tiny but consistent. Shifts, times, tip amounts, all documented, all inconsistent. "Have you told anyone?" "I told Gina once," Luce whispered. "She said it was a software bug. But my friend Raj, He works the register. His tips always match. Exactly. Would you be willing to sit with someone from our audit team? Luce hesitated. Will Gina know? Not unless we decide action is needed. Right now, we're just listening. Luce looked away, then back. Yeah, I guess I'm tired of being quiet. That night, back at the hotel, Lena called Marcus. She's got a notebook, almost identical to mine. Another sunrise? Number 34, Denver. Different players, same pattern. It's evolving, though. More subtle. They're rounding numbers, not erasing them. Just enough to stay under radar. Local or regional? Too early to tell, but it's clean. Too clean. And Gina? Polished. Too polished. Like she knew I was coming. Probably coached the staff. Marcus paused. Let me get Mara on it. The next morning, Lena met with Elise, a satellite audit agent from Mara's team. Quiet, sharp-eyed, always watching. Together, they went through Luce's notebook page by page, comparing it to POS logs and terminal reports. Elise frowned as the pieces aligned. They're rerouting tips again, about $3,200 in the last 6 weeks, mostly from Luce and another server, all through manual post-shift edits. By who? Lena asked. Elise tapped the tablet. Assistant manager, Gina's younger brother. Of course. The pattern hadn't just spread, it had adapted. By Friday, the audit was airtight. Lena sat across from Luce in the break room, slid a summary across the table. The girl read it slowly, then let out a shaky breath. I thought I was crazy, she whispered. You're not. What happens now? We confront them. You don't have to be there unless you want to. Luce looked up, hesitant but solid. I want to. That afternoon, in front of the full staff, Marcus joined via live video call. Elise presented the findings. Gina tried to protest, blamed software bugs, human error, even hinted Luce was misreading her own notes. But Lena stepped forward. She kept the truth in her notebook, she said quietly, like I did. And it matches the data. Luce looked down, then raised her voice, not loud, but certain. I'm not invisible anymore. That line stuck. No one said a word. Elise nodded and turned to the assistant manager. You're terminated. Gina, you're suspended pending further investigation. Effective immediately. Several staff members looked stunned. Some looked relieved. One line cook started clapping softly, then others joined. Not a celebration, just release. Outside in the snowy dusk, Luce walked with Lena to the parking lot. Do you think this'll ever stop happening? She asked. Lena paused, breath fogging. Maybe not everywhere, but one place at a time. We make it harder for them to get away with it. Luce nodded. Then, for the first time since Lena had arrived, she smiled. A real smile. Back in Chicago, Mara debriefed the ethics panel with Lena's help. The Denver case confirms it, she said. The pattern's spreading, but the notebooks they're multiplying too. Marcus listened, hands steepled under his chin. What if we don't wait for another notebook? What if we act preemptively? Lena looked at him. How? We launch it, he said. The Fairness Hour, a public pilot. One designated hour per week where tip data is live and explained, where any employee can ask about their pay and get answers. No secrets, no shame, just transparency as culture, not just compliance. There was silence around the table. Deborah raised an eyebrow. You're proposing open access to sensitive data? I'm proposing open access to their money, Marcus said, because right now the only ones hiding are the ones stealing. He looked at Lena. Would you lead it? She didn't hesitate. Yes? Then let's start in Kansas City. The next Thursday at 3 p.m., Fairness Hour began at Sunrise number 22. Lena arrived early, set up a corner table with a laptop, payout charts, and blank notebooks. The staff watched from a distance, cautious. At 3:10, two servers approached. By 3:20, a dishwasher asked why his sheet showed fewer tips than his order count. The assistant manager stammered. Must be a system bug. Lena leaned in. That's what they told me once. Let's check the logs together. By 3:40, 5 staff had signed up for one-on-one sessions. 2 asked how to start notebooks. 1 asked where to report anonymously. That night, Lena sat in a booth near the window, her second notebook half filled already. A busboy stopped by holding a small envelope. My mom works at Sunrise number 8 in Missouri, he said shyly. She said she saw you on TV. She said you gave people like her a voice. Lena swallowed. Tell her she already had one, she said. She just needed someone to hear it. He beamed and walked off. Later, Marcus called. How'd it go? It worked, Lena said simply. We'll expand it. I figured you would. He paused. You know, Lena, it's strange. I used to think change came from the top. Budgets, metrics, strategy. Now I think it starts in a booth, with someone who refuses to stop writing. She didn't answer, just opened her notebook and wrote on the margin, Justice doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers, but it never stays silent forever. Then she closed it gently and smiled, because somewhere another notebook was opening. The wind in Kansas City always seemed to carry something more than just air, an edge, a restlessness, the kind of quiet pressure that made you walk faster without knowing why. Lena felt it the moment she stepped out of the airport and into the cab, notebook in one hand, an extra pen in her jacket pocket. She'd come to investigate Sunrise number 22. But this time the playbook was different. There was no loose here, no battered notebook tucked behind an apron, just numbers and silence. When the audit team flagged this location, the patterns had been eerily familiar. Clock-in records didn't match payouts, tips rounded down just enough to hide the difference, employee complaints vaguely filed and never followed up. But unlike Sunrise 17 or Denver, there had been no names attached, just red flags buried in reports. That was its own kind of warning. The diner sat at the edge of an industrial district, nestled between a car wash and a feed store. Its sign flickered weakly against the gray sky. Inside, the place looked clean, too clean, like it had been staged. The manager, Derek Monroe, greeted Lena with a rehearsed smile and a grip that was firm enough to imply something, but not friendly enough to mean it. You must be Ms. Label, he said. We heard someone might be stopping by. I'm not here to audit, she replied smoothly, just to observe. See how the new systems are settling in. Well, he said with a confident nod, we've been running a tight operation. No complaints from my end. Lena smiled politely. I'll be the judge of that. She took a booth in the back, same as always, ordered a black coffee, opened her notebook, and watched. There was a rhythm to every diner. This one was a little too symmetrical. Servers never hesitated at the register. The assistant manager never stepped off the floor. No one questioned anything. That was the tell. Too perfect is always a performance. Over the next 3 days, Lena spoke to 7 employees off the record. 3 admitted, quietly, that they didn't understand how their tips were calculated. 1 hadn't seen a breakdown of her tips in over a year. A cook said he'd stopped checking after getting scolded for being too curious. When Lena compared shift logs with payroll records Mara's team had pulled in advance, the inconsistencies multiplied. Derek Monroe had an unusual number of POS access edits. Dozens of tips were marked as manual entries with no verification trails, and the assistant manager promoted just 3 months ago was listed on override logs more than any floor staff combined. On the 4th day, Lena sat in a small conference room on the 22nd floor of True Heart Eats headquarters, the skyline of Chicago stretching behind her like a silent jury. Marcus was at the head of the table, arms crossed, face unreadable. Mara sat to her right, tablet on her knee. Deborah, flipping through printed reports, glanced at Lena. "You flew out 3 days ago," she said. "What did you see?" Lena's voice was steady. 6 shifts, 7 interviews. The staff is cautious, not uninformed, just exhausted. They're tired of sounding alarms no one responds to. "Did you get into the manager's records?" Marcus asked. Lena nodded. "The numbers don't match. Tips entered by hand, entries during off hours, assistant manager over-editing privileges. It's another echo of Sunrise 17. Mara scrolled on her screen. Derek Monroe came from Sunrise 11. That location was never audited, but had similar complaints, all dismissed. "So this goes back further," Marcus murmured. "What's your recommendation, Lena?" The room fell silent. Lena looked down at her notebook. She had written everything, the hesitations, the mismatched data, the side glances. But unlike before, there was no brave voice rising from within the diner. No Luce, no Lena. Just fear, disguised as compliance. "We act," she said finally. "Not just internally, publicly." "You mean suspend the manager?" Deborah asked. "No," Lena said, sitting straighter. "I mean, we launch the Fairness Hour everywhere. Make it mandatory. 1 hour per week. System-wide. Tip data explained. Staff allowed to ask anything. Anonymous complaints welcomed. Real transparency." Mara tapped her screen. "My team surveyed 10 diners. 91% of employees said they'd feel safer speaking up if corporate led the conversation first." Marcus leaned back, quiet, for a long moment. "You want to make fairness public?" Lena met his eyes. "I want to make fairness normal." 1 week later, posters were distributed to every True Heart Eats location in the Midwest. Fairness Hour, every Thursday, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Know your numbers. Ask questions. Stay informed. In Kansas City, Lena returned to Sunrise number 22 for the first full rollout. No audit, no clipboard. Just a table in the back, a screen connected to POS logs, and a stack of blank notebooks waiting for new authors. At 3:07, the first employee came forward, a teenage hostess who asked if she could just watch. At 3:15, a server brought her tip sheet and pointed at a line that didn't match her shift log. At 3:22, a dishwasher named Ron raised his hand and asked why his overtime bonus had vanished last week. Derek, seated awkwardly at the table, stammered something about system error. Lena leaned forward. "That's what they told me once. Let's check the override logs together." She clicked through the data. There it was, manual entry, backdated. "Who approved this?" she asked. Derek said nothing. By 3:45, 5 more employees had lined up for private reviews. 2 had never seen their tip breakdowns. 1 had never received hers at all. A girl named Shannon whispered, "Can I have one of those notebooks?" "You can have two," Lena replied. That night, as she sat in her booth eating a grilled cheese alone, a busboy approached quietly. He looked maybe 17, with nervous eyes and a name tag that read Eli. He held a worn envelope in one hand. "My sister works at Sunrise Number 8 in Missouri," he said. "She saw you on TV, said you gave people like her a voice." Lena's throat tightened. "Tell her she already had one," she said. "She just needed someone to hear it." He nodded and walked off. Later, Marcus called. "How did it feel?" "Like the beginning," she said. "We'll expand it." He paused. "You know, Lena, I used to believe change happened through policy, but now I think it happens when one person refuses to stay quiet." Lena didn't answer. She just looked down at her notebook, flipped to a blank page, and wrote in the margin, "Fairness isn't loud. It's a question you're finally allowed to ask." In the weeks that followed, Fairness Hour went national. From Toledo to Tulsa, diners began holding open discussions. Not every location welcomed it. Some managers resisted. Some staff were hesitant. But the culture began to shift. Tips were no longer abstract numbers. They were visible, verifiable, shared. In a diner in Indiana, a cook posted the tip log on the kitchen bulletin board. In Ohio, a server asked to lead her own weekly breakdown session. In Michigan, a shift lead trained his team on how to audit their own hours. And in Missouri, at Sunrise Number 8, a 17-year-old girl named Ava opened her first notebook. She hadn't told anyone, not her coworkers, not even her mother. Just started writing. Every shift, every hour, every line she didn't understand. 3 weeks later, she compared her notes with her tip payouts and found a $47 gap. Not much, but enough, she told her manager. He shrugged it off. She submitted the discrepancy through the anonymous QR code Lena had left on a flyer. The ethics team flagged it. Mara investigated. It wasn't just Ava. The problem went deeper. The assistant manager was quietly rerouting tips again. Mara called Lena. "We're going to act. Want to come back to Missouri?" Lena didn't hesitate. She flew down on a Friday. By Monday, the manager was suspended, the assistant terminated, and every staff member received their back pay. At the end of the shift, Ava walked up to Lena in the parking lot. "I didn't think anyone would believe me," she said. "I just didn't want to feel stupid anymore." "You weren't stupid," Lena said. "You were right. You just needed someone to see it." Ava held out something small, her pen. "This is the one I used," she said. "It's cheap, but it worked." Lena took it like it was something sacred. That night, Marcus sent Lena an email. "We're creating something new," it read. "An annual recognition for workplace integrity. We want you to present the first award." Lena raised her eyebrows. She scrolled down. The name of the award had already been chosen. The Label Award. She stared at the screen for a long time. When she finally looked up, the city lights blinked back at her like distant stars. She clicked open her second notebook, pressed Ava's pen to the top margin, and wrote slowly, "Truth isn't a spotlight. It's a handheld torch, and someone has to light it first."